Well, I want to turn to Tom Farrell, and Tom is going to talk to us about the Gleason Mechanical Test Company. Tom, welcome.
Thank you again for having me. I appreciate being on the show. This is called Gleason's Mechanical Test Company. It's a scratch build. It's basically a machine shop that I did several years ago. I had been traveling the past 2 weeks, so I didn't have any, quote, new material. This will be new to our audience, but I started with this, as usual, a piece of plywood, but this time it was for a specific area on the old Rustic, Buff, and Old Gothic Railroad. There's a spur here, and I wanted this building to fit specifically in this space. So the plywood was cut to fit the area, and then I began without any plans, of course, as usual, the structure. I start out with I cast from a mold some plaster rock work. Then I cut it into these pieces crudely and numbered them so I wouldn't get them confused when I started staining them. And I just stained them with a alcohol wash and some acrylic paints diluted. These are always my base colors because my final finishing is on the model, but I wanted to get a jump start on some of these colors here. And then I super glued them to the plywood base, and I envisioned a tower as the first structure on this machine shop. So using clapboard siding, I simply cut out the windows, and then I put 1/4 inch material behind it for bracing purposes. I built 4 sides up like that, painted the inside black since I don't intend to show any detail on this model. And then I painted it green with Tamaya military dark green. Then with a wire brush, I scuffed the clapboard siding, and then I put a black alcohol wash over that. And that is my standard finishing technique for the bulk of my models. Next up, I put in the second foundation. I had this from my scrap bin. This is an expanded or some kind of foam retaining wall that I had left over from another project. Again, I just simply cut them into 45-degree angles on 2 of the sides and then super glued it in place. And if you notice, I didn't extend the foam all the way in here because you're not going to see it. I didn't even paint this because you're not going to see that either. And I needed a piece of 1/4 inch material here so that the next building would have a foundation to sit on, if you will. Next, I came up with a cardboard template. I wasn't exactly sure what this next building was going to look like, and I wanted a profile. So I took some cardstock and I kept drawing up different roof lines and things, so I was satisfied that this was the silhouette that I wanted for this next building. And I wanted this thing to look kind of unique, so it has these different roof lines to it. And as you'll see, I'm going to put a tower on top. I forget what kind of roof it is, a hip roof on top of the tower. Then we just take a big jump here. With those profiles, I put them on clapboard siding. I cut out 2 sides, and with this 1/4 inch material that I use an abundance of, I strengthen the clapboard siding and put this thing together. This is the back wall. I always mark things up and down so I don't, when I'm gluing, I don't get confused and glue it upside down and have to carve it out. That's the clapboard siding. Now, I've talked about this before. When you use clapboard siding, if you're going to trim it out or put windows on, you have to cut and remove the clapboard siding. Otherwise, your trim will rest on top of the highlights here. And same is true with the windows. These are Victorian style windows from Grant Line. You'll see in a moment, but I see how I cut these out. Gives for a nice flush fit. There's actually quite a bit of work in this piece before it gets glued onto the structure. So there it is glued on, and you can see the shaving. I just use a flat X-Acto blade. First I cut this out with a number 10 blade, the common blade, I think it's number 10 blade. And then I use a flat blade and just shave this stuff off. Really makes a difference in appearance when you're gluing the trim and the windows on. Another little technique that I use on this clapboard, on this siding here, is I try to match this up. So, put the trim on. These aren't off from one another. It's a nice little trick. Makes it look nicer. There's just another photo. So this thing's coming along without any real plans, of course, my typical style. One of the reasons I use two different stones and two different paints is I wanted the appearance that they put in this main building first. Then they elected to put up a tower. So they used a different stone. This is a cut stone. This is a random stone. This has a rock face. This is as found stone. Slightly two different military greens I used. Same technique. I paint everything with a base color, scratch it with a wire brush. You can see the black alcohol ink on here. And there's the back side. These colors will all get, these stones will get toned down, as you'll see later. I go in with an inexpensive acrylic black paint the inside because I have no intention of showing detail on the inside. There's an up close of that, those cutouts again. Really critical technique to use when you're using clapboard siding. This is that, there's a name for this type of roof, which escapes me at the moment, but this is how I came up with the idea to model this this type of roof. This harkens back to my model airplane days. That's where I learned this little technique. And what I've done here is this is actually balsa wood, because it's easy to sand and easy to fit. And I'm layering it with this very fine 1/32 of an inch plywood, which is very hard, but very flexible and very strong plywood. I'm simply super gluing it on here. And you basically have to fight it in place, but I super glue all the edges. Then I go back and sand it. We're going to put shingles on this, but I like to have a nice strong base to put my shingles on. Here's the model developing. There's that roof we just saw. I just painted it black, and I've begun adding materials here. This is actually plastic, styrene, flat piece of styrene with strips of plastic to simulate a metal roof. My original intention was to make this look like a copper roof, and this copper as well. You'll see I changed the color because I didn't like this green on green. I didn't think it looked right. Next up, I put in the decking. These are simply 4x4s. So these are 1/8 by 1/8 in O scale. And these are 2x6 runners. Not really going to see these, but I went to great trouble to make it somewhat realistic. This looks like it takes a lot of time. It really doesn't. I just cut these supports on my chopper, and then I put a dab. I mark I take a ruler and I measure this out and I make little pencil marks where they're supposed to go. I put 1 drop of super glue, stand it on end, and it goes very rapidly between the chopper, the super glue, and then putting the runners on. Looks like those runners are actually 4x4s. And there's the decking. This is, I think I used the shipboard siding or decking from Northeastern Scale Lumber here. I cut this out to make it appear like it's board by board, but as I said in last week's show, this is all pre-glued with black glue. Comes in a variety of widths. These are paper shingles. They're just put on strip by strip with Elmer's glue. I just sand these edges and then I begin putting on, I cut individual pieces out, fold them over, glue them one at a time. Looks like I used super glue on that. This was held down with just Elmer's glue. So I had to do 4 sides like this. They come gray like this. I, of course, paint them. It's a nice look. Now here's the model developing. I think this roof, this rusted metal roof, looked a lot better than the copper patina that I originally tried. You know, when you're putting it together, if you don't like the look of something, just change it. And I like the contrast here rather than having, it just wasn't coming off for me. These are Paper Creek. These are actual paper metal simulated roofing. I do go back and I repaint them. All this is hand painted. The windows are pre-sprayed with a acrylic or with a Krylon white, and then I go back and on the model I typically there's before weathering, there's after weathering. I just go on with a black acrylic wash. You can see that actually that decking material looks pretty fair there. I think the trick is to cut into it like this so it has the appearances of individual boards. And I see I put some nail holes in here too. This is just with a Ponce wheel. You're all familiar with that. That and a ruler, you just run this Ponce wheel back and forth and you get these nail hole effects. And there's the finished model. I have this quasi shed here. It's made out of bookcases. These are from Rusty Nails or Rusty Nails, I think he calls himself. These are, I don't know where I got these, but I just painted these barrels up and these boxes up and an overall weathering effect. It's a very attractive little model. Almost looks like a painting here. And put a little cinders down here. A little couple boards here, a little detail here to hold the roof up. This is a 4x4, 4x4, and these are 2x8s. And a little overhang here. These Victorian windows are from Grant Line. These are Grant Line doors. Put in these skylights. I wanted this to look like it had a lot of natural light inside. It's supposed to be some kind of machine shop. Corrugated. This is styrene up here. Just simply painted a base color and then a variety of acrylic colors to get that look. There's the back. This back of this building wasn't going to be seen, so I didn't really put a lot of time, effort, and energy into it. There's an up close of that. No, that looks like a painting. There's an up close of the shed, if you will, and these barrels. Just go in. I just randomly pick paint from my paint shelf, and just doesn't matter what color. I just go in, paint something, then I pull down another bottle, paint it, pull down another bottle, and I have all these different colors in there. Then I go back with a acrylic wash and tone everything down so the blues aren't electric blue and the yellows aren't electric yellow. It's all a question of subtleties. Put a saw on the side there. There's that. I may have to go back and revisit that northeastern ship decking. That looks pretty fair to me. Up close to the other part of the building. The weathering really balances the building out at the end. It tones down all the paint, all the hard colors, and gives you a general consistency to the building. I put these on the back because in an earlier picture you could see the wood grain here of this siding. I didn't like the idea. It had like a swirl pattern. So I went back and I just went to Google and found some 1920 or 1930 pictures, printed them out on PowerPoint, sanded the back of them, put them on with Elmer's glue, and there you go. And there's the finished building. Gleason's Mechanical Test Company. One test is worth 1,000 opinions. I've got the workers inebriated, of course, and there's another view. A nice little building. It's about 9 inches in length and about 9 inches high, 8.5 inches high. There's an up close of the dog and the drunk and the manager, and these are just purchased and glued in place. Same with the barrel. You can see that stone, how I finally finished it. Everything's weathered. See, the posts are weathered to match. This is how I put it in. If you remember from the very first slide, that was an outline of the plywood. And then with these tools of mass destruction, I started taking out the scenery. Everything on my old layout and my new layout is on pink foam. Simply pry it out. Here's my little trick. I take that 1/4 inch material and I do an outline so that that plywood base fits right in there. This is critical if you're ever going to take your layout apart someday. As I've said, the old Rustic Buff and old Gothic was 15 years in the making and a half a day to take out. The reason it was easy to take out was this technique of taking 1/4 inch material basically as a framework. You set the plywood inside the framework. I paint Elmer's glue all around it, put in the scenery. This is the old layout. You can't, I mean, if you look real hard, you can see where it is, but you can go back and put another layer of cinders and things on there. But it literally, when it's time, if you ever have to take your layout apart, this literally pops right out. I mean, it took like a minute to take that out, if that. There it is on the old Gothic, the original. It's spot. I mean, well, that's it.
That is some structure. No question about it.